Welcome back. We are doing the second mission in the alcohol system, where I have to get the victory closer to alcohol 5 without it being detected, and to accomplish this mission I am in a longbow with flash. Because I'm in a longbow, it makes tedious corvette killing slightly faster since I can torpedo some of them. Unfortunately, there are more than 4 capital ships in this mission,
Watch this action.
and I only have 4 torpedoes, so I can't torpedo all of them. Though, as usual, I have cut the tedious gunfire sections out. There's a pair of destroyers as well as the 4 corvettes, but it doesn't actually make any difference as far as I'm concerned, other than in as much as both of the destroyers will get torpedoes, along with 2 of the corvettes. Theoretically, if I can induce flash to torpedo the remaining corvettes, things will be much faster, but this doesn't work out perfectly.
I have failed my race.
By which I mean that he torpedoed that one, but I couldn't get him to do any more. After that, we're into fighters. This stuff is why I said that you guys must hate me, because I'm now going to spend a lot of time chasing darkets around with a longbow. Now, I've got 16 image recognition missiles, which I shall be using liberally to make this less painful, but that will not solve the entire problem, as there are more than 16 fighters that I will have to destroy. Now, that is also why I'm playing this mission on Ace difficulty. I did actually try Crazy, but it took ages. Basically, the higher the difficulty level, the better darkets are at evading missiles. If you think back to my Nightmare missions, where I was darket chasing an arrow, to get reliably hit with Imrex, I had to get behind them, accelerate to full afterburner and then launch. Well, full afterburner and an arrow is more than twice the speed of full afterburner and a longbow, so unsurprisingly missiles are rather more miss than hit on Nightmare when we're talking about darket versus longbow. The ideal enemy for the darket is the Thunderbolt, which is why I said that this was an absolutely a Thunderbolt mission, because it's full of darkets and you've still got 2 torpedoes, 1 Butte, 1 flash, so I could deal with the 2 destroyers using the torpedoes and just gun down the corvettes, which is tedious but not difficult. But it's not actually true that you hate me, at least I don't think you do. The person you actually hate is Flash. If you go back and look through the series of ship choices you've made, normally you choose either the fighter that I would have chosen for a mission, or one that's not hugely inferior. But if Flash has been selected as my wingman, you will inevitably pick either the Hellcat or the Longbow.
Break and attack.
The 2 fighters which I have a rather large amount of contempt for. Not too bad against these asteroid ships though. These and the Pactans, which we'll be seeing later, are sufficiently slow and lumbering. Longbow can usually get somewhere near shooting at them. And while they have got big guns and they are outnumbering me, and I'm doing a 3-on-1 here, the Longbow's got a sufficiently good armor and shields that I can take a few hits in the name of dealing out more damage than I'm taking. Nonetheless, this is much more painful than it could have been in a Thunderbolt. However, your reasons for that are dislike of Flash, which, well, I'm not going to say it's laudable, but it's certainly understandable. So I feel that in the interests of making this more entertaining, I ought to warn you that there are some dialogue choices coming up, and of course I'm not going to tell you which ones, which choices which I can only describe as incorrect will result in you having no option but to put Flash in an Excalibur, which I am reasonably sure none of us wants to see. It's possibly me, because it means I'll be blind as well. Well, actually the mission in question is compulsory Excalibur, so I will definitely be flying one. But anyway, I commented at the start that the objective of this mission was to get the victory first throughout Core 5 without it being detected by the Kilrathi, but in practice all this means is that I have to destroy all the forces that show up. This is a sadly common trait in Wing Commander games, to the extent where I recall praising Standoff but not doing it. If one is to be sarcastic about the nature of missions in various space game franchises, you would say that Wing Commander is endless patrols, whereas Star Lancer is endless escorts, and of course Free Space is endless interceptions. The only game series that really make a decent fist of giving you a good variation, I'd say, are the X-Wing series, though they do somewhat succumb to having a lot of capital ship battles. Now, Wing Commander has, in part because of its inspiration, an attempt to head towards the World War II paradigm where groups of opposing capital ships never really see each other. You have the occasional gun battle in Wing Commander 3, but it's still very rare. And the ships involved are never larger than destroyers. I think there's one cruiser-on-cruiser battle. Now, that is fine as far as it goes, but it does tend to produce a slightly boring game. V-Space did a better job of having some fun capital ship fights to get involved with. And in some ways, I really loved the way Star Lancer did its cap ship fights, where you were doing Wild Weasel, picking turrets off, clearing fighters out to let your bombers get through. I thought that was great fun. I kind of get the impression that I was in a minority, but I don't know, I absolutely adored Star Lancer's cap ship strike stuff where you were knocking out shield generators and turrets. Not destroying cap ships yourself, but clearing away so that your torpedo strike would work, and that was just an enormous amount of fun, at least for me. What I'm sort of leading up to here is that really no matter how you do your mission style, what combat paradigm you're going for, there are always ways to make the game more interesting than your basic 4 nav point patrol or variations on it like this mission, which have a clever idea but don't actually implement that idea. So to take this as an example, what we're theoretically trying to do here is win the reconnaissance battle. We're trying to advance deeper into the system without the Kilrathi detecting our presence. Fine then, let's actually do that. Let's have a jamming ship. Let's say we've got to destroy the Kilrathi in a certain amount of time before they can get a message through to alert their command. Let's say we've maybe got to destroy communications equipment or relays or sensor nets, and we've got some active stealth components, so you have to try and avoid using afterburners or getting within a certain range of Kilrathi ships so they won't detect you until they do those things. You can do all sorts of fun stealth stuff. Forced stealth sections in FPSs are not something I'm a fan of. Then again, I don't play many FPSs, but this isn't actually forced stealth we're talking about. It's really just setting up the perfect ambush, or getting ready to do it. Star Lancer actually did this again. Yeah, pay no attention to the Darker I just collided with. It's a Darker, I'm in a longbow, it doesn't really matter. Don't think I took any damage as a result. Of course, being Star Lancer, it did it wrong.
Look what I see.
There were a couple of missions where you had enemy communications devices or observation devices and you had to destroy them before they got a signal off. The classic one, I believe there were 9 satellites or something you had to destroy. You had about 60 seconds to do it in, and they took about 10 seconds each. And since you were flying around in a wing of 6, you thought that might be a problem. Well, it wouldn't be. If your wingmen weren't functionally retarded and all of them would tend to go after the same satellite, meaning that you'd have to fly around like a maniac trying to kill them all and normally fail at it. And just... wingman stupidity is incredibly annoying. That's one of the things that I actually find... Because Wing Commander 3 is a very simple game in that sense, the repetitive nature of a lot of the missions mean that at least you don't get pissed off by your wingman doing stupid things, because it was easy enough to program your wingman to be vaguely smart. Sometimes there's relatively little excuse though. I mean, I praised the X-Wing series earlier for having fairly varied missions. One of the downsides of that is the wingmen can adapt to it very well. This is classically obvious in the TIE Fighter and X-Wing vs TIE Fighter games, where frequently the mission hints that those games give you if you fail the mission will tell you what all of the different groups should be doing, and you will discover that the groups that you want to be part of do not actually do what the mission hints say they ought to, which can be more than a little frustrating. Anyway, I seem to have digressed from the topic again, which is that there are lots of different ways you can use to make these rather dull patrol missions interesting. Another classic excuse that the Wing Commander games have for making you do a patrol is that your carry commander needs reconnaissance data. But realistically, you're not really doing a recon mission, because what you end up doing is flying around and shooting at stuff, rather than actually, doing reconnaissance, taking pictures, taking sensor readings. Wing Commander 4 actually improves quite substantially on that. We do have some active recon going on in it, but it's not really a match for the way that the X-Wing series of games did recon, or that Standoff does recon, where, it's a case of closing in on a group of enemy ships which have overwhelming firepower compared to yours, and buzzing past them at high speed and taking a quick inventory of what's around, which feels a lot more like actually what the mission design said it was supposed to be, while possibly taking the opportunity to do some very highly specified mischief. And those missions were amongst my favourite in any game where they existed. I always liked the idea of the hit and run raid, or similar things, so I think Wing Commander really missed something with those, though I can see it would be hard to pull off in a Wing Commander game, though Standoff more or less manages it, than it would be in the X-Wing series with their fighters with set top speeds. You'd need to save a lot of afterburner fuel to get in and out against the Kilrathi ships, which could use afterburners to chase you. We now have a slight delay in finishing this mission off, caused by the fact that I was impressed by a Kilrathi Dark Kit that actually used the decoy correctly, and decided that I had earned the right to be killed using gunfire, something which took rather longer than was really necessary. Also, you'll see that I forgot to use one of my torpedoes, which also increased the mission time, though you didn't have to put up with that one so much, since I didn't show me destroying the corvette in question. Drowthy are no less annoying to kill with missiles on Ace in a longbow than they are on Nightmare in an arrow, excepting of course that you don't have to dodge missiles coming back the other way on Ace. But missiles still generally decline to actually finish the Drowthy off, so you have to get some good cannon hits in, though at least the longbow's guns have sufficient firepower that you don't normally need to get more than one in. Though it does depend a lot on where the missile actually hits. I was having quite good luck here with having the missile hit the more vulnerable tail rather than the wings, which often happens. If I'd actually been packing heat seekers here, I could have destroyed them outright. I didn't bother because my assumption was that anything I could actually hold in gun sights long enough to get a heat seeker lot was something that I could destroy using guns, but it would actually have made these Drowthy easier. Not that it's a huge difference either way. I have enough spare missiles that I could even spare two for the last fighter, so in Rex versus Heat Seekers wasn't a big issue. And that's that.
Need clearance, TCS Victory.
Looks like you swept out a nice path for us, sir. You're cleared to land.
That torpedo being my only missile left, it selects itself and locks onto the Victory by default. Anyway, thanks for watching. I've been Alan and this has been Wing Commander 3 Heart of the Tiger. And join me next time for one of two missions depending on what the thread decides to do.
Pretty slick flying, sir.
Thanks, Chief.